YouTube, it's Louise the Big Head Bookworm. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good day. So today is Wednesday the something 17th of January. My mind went completely dunk at that point. And I've got one parish notice before I get into a video that I have been looking forward to recording. Me and Indy are here. So if you wobble, it's because Indy is wanting to get in on the action. You've also got another cat behind you who might... And I've got a squeaky chair. Oh, anyway, my parish notice before I get even more distracted is that tonight is the opening night of the pantomime. And I'm in it, and the husband's in it, and lots of other people are in it as well. It's the village pantomime. We're doing Camelot. Yeah, I know, I know, I hadn't heard of it before. You know, what's wrong with Cinderella or Aladdin? I don't know. But we're doing Camelot. And it's opening night tonight. I am recording little bits that I can, either of myself or I'm going to do fellow castmates and stuff. And they will be included on my crochet vlog. I put my first one up on Sunday. There will be another one up later in the week, probably maybe Friday, but it might actually be Sunday again. And it's panto, not crochet this week, because I am full of pantomime. So if you want to see, if you're interested in kind of either my costume or just kind of getting a little bit of hearing me chat a little bit about the pantomime, that is on my crochet vlog, which is this week more panto than crochet. So yes, that'll be going up later in the week. It's very exciting. However, let's get back to what I'm doing here, which is the books that I read in 2017. So I don't do a roundup in either my best books or my worst books or my most anticipated or my whatever, because I don't think of books in that way. I'm happy to watch other people's lists, and I love the fact that people think about lists in that way. That's absolutely fine. It's just not the way that I do it and not the way that I look at my reading. I don't compare books in that way, and that's just the way that I am, and I don't categorise them in that way. I know lots of people do and enjoy doing it, and that's grand. But what I did January last year was I went through and I pulled all the books off of my shelf that I had the physical copy that I had read in 2016. So I did that this year. So I have got a big stack of books, got several stacks of books here, of the books the physical books that I've still got of my 2017 reads, and I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible with one or two words as to whether I liked it or didn't like it, or my thoughts or what have you. I haven't thought about this. I've been looking forward to it, and I've been having little piles of books around ready for this video, because basically this video is for me. I thought, I'm happy that you're watching it, and I'm happy that you're here watching it. It means a great deal. But I have since watched that book back, that video back, and it gives me much more of an idea of the books that I read in the year than actually just reading it off the list. Actually seeing the covers and seeing what I said about it brings it to life a bit more for me, and I've really liked that video. I found it a really good video to have in my archives, so I thought I'd do. I'm really looking forward to doing it again this year, so I shall get into it. So I've kind of vaguely arranged them into categories so that I get more of an idea of what I read. I read about 120 books last year, which is fine. I don't know if it's more or less than the year before. I don't really pay attention to that kind of thing. You can read one book and 17 magazines and call yourself a reader, as far as I'm concerned. It's how you define yourself and how you feel about yourself, and whether reading is part of something that you consider part of yourself, part of your makeup. There are some people that most definitely do not consider themselves a reader. They go, nope, it's not for me. Whereas I do consider myself a reader. I consider myself a bookworm. My books are very much part of who I am and how I view the world and how I interpret the world and how I wish to hear the stories of the world. And it's up to you how you define yourself, but that's how I define myself. So the amount of books I read in a year doesn't really make any difference, because it's how I've defined myself since I can remember. And so here are the books. Stop talking, Louise. Just Show me the books. I will show you the books. So I'm going to start off with the category where I started off last year. If I can find it. Here we go. And this is kind of sci-fi and fantasy. More sci-fi than fantasy, but here we go. So the first book of last year was the Book of Phoenix by Nadi Okafor. Okafor, I don't know. Which I enjoyed. I didn't love it as much as some people did, but I did enjoy and would recommend. I'm going to have to just put the books down. The Long Earth by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. This was a book that one of my friends, it was one of her books, and she absolutely adores it. I thought it was all right. I'm not going to continue with the series, but it was fun. A book I am continuing with the series was Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. New adult rather than young adult, I would say. And fantasy, it was great. I really, really enjoyed that. I raced through it. This was another one I thoroughly enjoyed. Proper fantasy. The 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. It won a whole slew of awards. I have the Obelisk Gate, which is the second one, which also won a whole slew of awards, and well deserved. So that was a really good book. Apart from the ending, I had a bit about. This was an oldie, Sabriel by Garth Nix, and the cat is jogging. Sit still. She's in the sunshine behind you, and that's what it is. Sabriel by Garth Nix. This is young adult, I suppose, but just a kind of a fantasy book. I enjoyed it. I can understand if you'd come to it having not read lots of other fantasies before, you'd think it was a most amazing thing, but I had read other fantasies. So Behind the Throne, which is the first book in the Indian War series by K.B. Waggers. Great, highly recommend. If you haven't read it, why haven't you read it? Borderline by Michelle Baker. I'm putting this down as fantasy because it's about Fae. It's about the Arcadia project set in Hollywood, modern day. Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't the best thing I've ever read. I only read it in December and it was fine. In fact, I think that was the first book of the year and the last book of the year in one section. This is my non-fiction section. Not bad, not bad. Howard's End is on the Landing by Susan Hill. It's a year of reading from home, so it's about just reading the books that she has in the house. And it raised lots of questions for me, so that was brilliant. I am, as you may well know, I love true crime, and I read a lot of true crime this year. I would say, a true crime addict. I listen to podcasts, and I love it. I got well into the Michael Peterson case, and this is a book I read about it called A Perfect Husband by Aphrodite Jones. Aphrodite Jones does a TV programme in America. I can't get hold of it. I think I can watch some of them on YouTube, but she does kind of true crime TV, and she's also a true crime author. So this was about the Michael Peterson case. If anybody else has been listening to Beyond Reasonable Doubt or Watch the Staircase, read it. This was Midnight in Peking by Paul French. This was set in Peking in 1937. Really good book. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a bit dry at times, but it kept my interest all the way through. And Lord Lucan, the story of Lord Lucan by Laura Thompson, A Different Class of Murder, is a lot more about Lord Lucan than it is about the actual murder. And I would say that Laura absolutely loves Lord Lucan. And Notes on a Killing by Kevin Flynn and Rebecca Lavoie, who are co-hosts of the Crime Writers On, a podcast I listen to. And it was fine. It was a middle-of-the-road one, I think. It's a memoir. I read The Outrun by Amy Liptrot. It's all right. I read Riverine by Angela Palm. Oh, that got me thinking. That really, really got me thinking, which was glorious. I had a bit of a death thing going on, which is bizarre because my mum died, and which blew my year apart basically. And I did find comfort from reading about death. I mean, I read a lot of crime and true crime, what have you, but actually reading non-fiction about death. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematorium by Caitlin Doherty, she of Ask a Mortician YouTube fame. Brilliant. I think everybody's read it, or if you haven't, a lot of YouTubers have read it. Oh, just such a good book. So it made me look for other books that are similar. Good Morning by Elizabeth Mayer. This is much more kind of 6 Feet Under or kind of Sex in the City meets the funeral trade. There isn't a lot of sex in it, but I'll be honest. But it is that kind of glamour side of it, set in New York. Elizabeth Mayer, fascinating though. I really enjoyed it. I read a knitting book, which is The Secret Life of a Knitter by the yarn harlot, who is Stephanie Pearl McPhee. It's a collection of articles, repetitive. I read this, A Time to Keep Silence by Patrick Leigh Fermor. Oh, just beautiful. It's about how he did several retreats at monasteries and he talked about the kind of ecclesiastical orders that he stayed in, and it's beautiful, just beautiful, very slim, but so deep. I also read, which is a novel, but I class them as similar, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, which is a reimagining of the life of the Buddha, which was just amazing. And I read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the cat is now moving stuff again. A different cat this time. Which, yes, I mean, lots and lots of questions, lots of conversations, and I don't think you can ask for more than that, really. I don't think I wasn't the right. Oh, I don't know if I'm the right person for that book, but I am the right person for that book because I'm not in that book, so I am the right person to read it. Sorry, you're moving. What are you up to? He's being feisty. So yes, but that was great. Oh, I shall do some more of my just general fiction books. General fiction. I read this one. I read a little short story by Stefan Zweig called Chess. Oh, it was a good one. It makes me want to read some more of his. The Anchoress by Robin Cadwalder. Oh, it's so good. So good. About a woman who a holy woman who shuts herself away in a small cell in the 1100s. It's fiction, but it's brilliant. His Bloody Project. Which one? The Man Booker. Don't move. But did it win? I can't remember. Yeah, a reimagining of a crime set in Scotland in 1869. Which actually now reminds me of what does it remind? The burial rites reminds me of that kind of. It's kind of almost a similar thing, except this is Scottish. That was Icelandic. So yeah, that was interesting. Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk, set in across the 1930s and the 1980s. Oh, it was great. Very New York. Got hair in my mouth, sorry. Goldfinger by Ian Fleming. So good. So good. I read The Paying Guest by Sarah Waters. I love Sarah Waters. I love her. This wasn't my favourite. It didn't help that I was reading it when my mum was actually passing. So I was reading it around that time. So it's tinged with that for me, and it always will be. But I didn't love it anyway. I didn't love it. I think it's too baggy. It needed to be edited. The Ashes of London by Andrew Taylor. I now remember that Andrew Taylor is not the author for me. The Watchmaker of Filigree Street by Natasha Pulley. Yes, it was fine. I didn't love it as much as everybody else seemed to. Before the Fall by Noah Hawley. Oh, it's such a good thriller. If you want to buy somebody a thriller, it's a really good one. It was everywhere at one point, and it was just like, is it going to be? Is it worth the hype? Yes, you know it is. It is. Buy it. Really good. It'd be good as an audiobook as well. Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes. I wanted to get back into Stephen King, and somebody was talking about this series, and I am going to get the next one, which is Finders Keepers. So that's really good. In fact, I should get that in the next month or two, or I just won't. I won't pick it up, will I? Right. This is kind of crime, and if I do the top bit, this is more historical crime. So the first bit's historical crime, the other bit's just crime. I read The Innocence of Father Brown, J.K. Chesterton. This is the first of the J.K. Chesterton Father Brown series. A mixed bag of short stories, frankly. Nothing like the TV programme, which I was hoping for the TV programme. What have we got here? Oh, these are my Jacqueline Winspear. I have a nice little collection of Jacqueline Winspear books. Can't do this. There it is. Which are there. And I read the first 3 in the series, and they're just glorious. Maisie Dobbs, and the Maisie Dobbs series. So Maisie Dobbs, Birds of a Feather, Pardonable Lies. So these are the first three. After the First World War, private investigator, set in London. Maisie Dobbs, It Is Your Gal. They're brilliant. I read the first two in the Laurie King series, which is Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes. It's The Beekeeper's Apprentice and A Monstrous Regiment of Women. I preferred that one to that one. But I have got the fourth book, so I want to get the third book so I can read on. I read the first in the Dublin Murder Squad series by Tanner French, which was In the Woods. Didn't love it as much as everybody else seems to. The Strings of Murder by Oscar de Muriel. I'm not saying that right. It was set in a crime set in Edinburgh in 1888. Yeah, again, seems to be a bit of a thing. I didn't love it as much as everybody said they were, thought they would. Love Murder by Sol Black. This is the second in the series. I didn't realise it was the second in the series. The Killing Lessons is the first one. I do recommend it though. So I recommend that you find The Killing Lessons or Love Murder if you like a good crime. I thought it were great. Another good crime, or a kind of easy pick-up crime that you don't have to concentrate on, The Beautiful Dead by Belinda Bauer. And also another crime I really recommend, which is Val McDermid's Fever of the Bone. I recommend all Val McDermid books. She is phenomenal and great, and I love her. Some more crime I have here is my J.D. Robbs that I read. I read Divided in Death, which was a reread. I read Witness in Death, which was a reread. I read Brotherhood in Death, which was the first one. It was new to me, and Apprentice in Death, which was new to me. I think there's another one out which I haven't read. That's kind of like 45 and 46 in the series. So they are series. If you want to start the In Death series, which are futuristic crimes set in New York in 2058, start with Naked in Death. That is the first one. I love them. They are comfort reads for me, and I reread and reread and reread them. Another one that is a comfort read, and I reread and I reread and I reread, of course, my Agathas. So some of the Agathas that I read this year, we all know I love Agatha Christie, and I am thinking of doing an Agatha Christie reading club, starting with the first one, which is The Mysterious Affair at Styles, but I shall talk more about that on another video. Cat Among the Pigeons by Agatha Christie, a Caribbean mystery, shortly followed by Nemesis, 3-act tragedy, Halloween Party, Sad Cypress, and Hercule Poirot's Christmas. All but 2 of them are Hercule Poirot's. So that was some of the Agathas that I read this year and just thought they were marvellous. Quick gulp of tea while I'm catching my breath. Ooh, it's just at the right temperature as well. I could edit that out, but I'm not going to. Right then. Let's go for Paranormal Romance. Seems to have been the year of Paranormal Romance. I have 2 enormous piles here. And I think it was comfort reading. A lot of the reading of this year, I look back and I think it was comfort reading. And this was very much, I found a new to me author, and I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 at least of her books. These are ones that I've got in physical copies. So remember, this isn't my library copies, or if it's just an audiobook that I haven't got a physical copy of. So this is just the physical copies I have. So I read 13 of Nalini Scott's. I read the entire of the Guild Hunter series. Here it is. That was not shown very well. There we go. And it starts with Angel's Blood, Archangel's Kiss, Archangel's Consort, Archangel's Blade, Archangel's Storm, Archangel's Legion, Archangel's Shadows, Archangel's Enigma, Archangel's Heart, and Archangel's Viper. And I don't want to say Archangels anymore. So I read the entire of that series. I also read the first 3 of her Changeling series. I read Slave to Sensation, Visions of Heat, Caressed by Ice. So they're good saucy reads. All of Nalini Singh's. She's a saucy gal, quite frankly. I would like to meet her. I believe she lives in New Zealand, and they are very multicultural, set across the world, especially her Guild Hunter series is particularly. And these are not so. I didn't like the series as much as Guild Hunter, but I did like that last one. I liked Caressed by Ice. Thought that was good. Here we go. I read the second of the last. So I reread that a couple of times. A Court of Mist and Fury, Akamaf. We all, if you like it, you like it, like it, like it, and I like it, like it, like it. I didn't reread A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I'm tempted because I don't actually have a copy of it, so I'm tempted to get it and reread the whole series again because I do really want to read A Court of Wings and Ruin again, which came out this year. So I reread those. Well, I read one and reread those. I finished off the Soulless series by Gail Carriger. I read Changeless, Blameless, Heartless and Timeless. I like that one. That was okay. I thought that was better. That one I thought it went off, and I thought that actually did I think that was better than that? I can't remember, but they weren't perfect. Soulless was perfect. The others weren't perfect, but I still really, really enjoyed the series, and I highly recommend it if you want steampunk paranormal romance with werewolves and vampires, and just it's great. It's great. Garden Spells, one-off paranormal romance. It was all right. The Falconer by Elizabeth May. Yeah. I read 2 of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I read Lover Eternal and Dark Lover. I think I read a couple of others from the library. I read the first 3 of the Darkest London series by Kirsten Callahan. I read Firelight, and I read Moonglow, and I read Winter Blaze. Moonglow was my favourite out of that series. Deep breath, everybody, we're nearly there. Romance. Takes me out of myself, I think, romance. That's what I needed. Actually, this isn't romance. The Graces by Laurie Eve was kind of a YA paranormal thing. Not for me. I read it, but it was fine. The Infernal Devices series is Clockwork Angel, is Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. I don't think you need to have read The Mortal Instruments before you read this. This is a prequel series, and it is completely fine to read it as a standalone. So that is the Infernal Devices Shadowhunter series by Cassandra Clare. You can reread it, set in Victorian London. I think you can read it as a standalone, and it's fine. I read in December. I read Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I am going to continue with the series. Oh, yes. I read the whole of the First Rule of Scoundrels series by Sarah MacLean, which is historical romance set in the Regency period. Saucy. But it's a rather good romance. I read A Rogue by Any Other Name. Loved it. I read One Good Earl Deserves a Lover. Nah. I read No Good Duke Goes Unpunished. Loved it. And then I read Never Judge a Lady by her cover, which was okay. Okay. I read A Scot in the Dark by Sarah MacLean. I also read the other one on my Kindle because I had 2 of that. And I read the first 2, or the only 2 books that are out at the moment, by Sherry Thomas, Lady Sherlock series, I read A Study in Scarlet Women by Sherry Thomas and A Conspiracy in Belgravia. Oh, I love that one. I didn't love that one as much, but I still thought they were fantastic. So I shall be getting those as they come out. That's all that's out at the moment. Last pile. I read a couple of classics, as I always do in a year. I read Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I read Persuasion. Let's just pause. By Jane Austen. I read a book inspired by a classic. I read Mr. Rochester by Sarah Shoemaker. I read a couple of modern classics. I read Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I also read The Tales of Beadle and the Bard. We also read at least 3 other Harry Potters, but we were reading them with Benedict, so I'm not going to show those, but that was it. And then I only read 3 hardbacks in the year, which is quite weird, isn't it? That's quite odd. I normally read more hardbacks, but it was very much in a paperback frame of mind. And I read Little Deaths by Emma Flint. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was good. Kind of crime thrillery, set in the 1965. Set in 1965. I read Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, which is the second book by the author of The Girl in on the Train. Too many narrators for me. Too many points of view. And I read Dan Brown's Origin. If you like Dan Brown, you will love Origin. If you don't like Dan Brown, you will hate Origin. I mean, that's the only thing you can say about it. I like Dan Brown, so I loved Origin. That's it. And there we go. That's it. That's all the books that I have physical copies of that I read in 2017. It was actually, it was an awful lot of books. Looking at it, there are there are an awful lot of books that I read because of I'd heard some hype of, or people had said to me you should read it, or I picked up because I knew them, because I'd seen them on BookTube or Bookstagram, which I've started to get much more into looking at. And they weren't as good as I'd hoped. But I think that happens because you try stuff. There's some stuff I tried because I'd seen it around and thought it might be fun, which was like the Nalini Singh. And I found an author that I absolutely love, which, fortunate for me, had a large back catalogue, which I could race through, and promptly did. So you've got to try stuff. I like to try stuff. I'm fortunate because I can read quickly, or because I do read quickly, I can try a lot of things. And it doesn't derail me. I think for some people, like for my husband, if he tries something and doesn't like it, well, that's it. He can be done. Have I done the whole of this video too low? I'm not doing it again. Hello, that's just me. So, if anybody wants to pop round now and help me put all these books away, it's utter pleasure putting books away. Don't you worry. I think we're done. There we go. So, yes, bit of a long video. If you don't like long videos, don't worry. If you like long videos, job's a good one. And I shall leave you. I hope you had a good reading year. I hope you had a good 2017 reading year. And I look forward to seeing you this time next year for my reading year of 2018. I have so far only read 1 book this year. I have started lots. I've got 2 that I'm almost finishing at the same time. So my January's been blown out because of some books I read on holiday, but also I've been doing other things like Panto and stuff like that. So my year so far, 2018, has been appalling for reading, but I'm enjoying that. And I know that there'll be months where I read 20 and there'll be months where I read 5, and that's the way it goes. Right then, my lovelies, hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you again sometime. Let's do this again, shall we?